All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about arithmetic sequences. You have looked at sequences and patterns for quite a long time. You are familiar with when they say, what's the next term, or what's the next number? You already know that your approach to figuring that out. Then you've approached it as they would say, okay, what is the 10th item in this? And many of you would just continue on with the pattern to try to figure it out. So in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about a specific formula that will help us find those bigger values that we're going to be looking at. Okay. Before we can get started, though, there's a couple of vocabulary words that we need to get over. So the first word that we're going to be reviewing is the word sequence. A sequence just means it's a list of numbers that form a pattern. So if there's a pattern involved, there is a sequence. So in the title alone, it says arithmetic sequence. We're going to be dealing with a specific sequence that defines the word arithmetic. We're also going to be taking a look at the word term. Every number that's in this sequence is referred to as a term. Okay, so please don't get confused when we start using that vocabulary word. A term is simply the number that's separated by the comma in my list. So if I'm given data, so for instance, the distance traveled in seconds is 1, 2, 3, 4, and in miles is 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. I'm sure all of you can look at this data and you go, yeah, there's a pattern. I can see that there's an increase of 0.2 that's happening as time passes. Okay, because of that pattern and all of the numbers being the same, that's what causes us to have that arithmetic sequence. So when the terms of the sequence change at the same exact rate, the sequence is called an arithmetic sequence. And this commonality, this 0.2, is going to be referred to as our common difference. All right, so again, another vocabulary word, common difference, that's going to be throughout this entire lesson. That's simply referring to that plus, that minus, that multiplication, that pattern. What is happening to the value to create the next one? Okay, so with that then, we're also going to be using now the variable a. It's going to be a capital A. However, I'm going to ask that you actually write it like a lowercase a, just bigger. I know it sounds weird, but that's just the format of how to write this. So the variable a is used to represent the terms in a sequence. The variable a with this little 9 here, we say it as a sub 9. So this a sub 9 is simply asking for the 9th term of the sequence. So whatever this little number is attached to my a, that's just referring to the term in that sequence. That's that number term. Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you is a formula that I honestly don't feel you need. You guys absolutely know how to find the next term in a pattern. And that's simply by applying the pattern, the common difference, to the number before it, the prior number. And so that's all this is saying. This is saying, well, if I'm looking for a term, take the term before it and add that common difference. So if I'm looking for the 7th term, I'm going to take the 6th term because 7 is here at the end. 7 minus 1 is 6. And I'm going to add that common difference to create that 7th term. So again, you guys are all pretty much familiar with that thought. So I'm not asking you to memorize this formula. To be honest, you don't even need to write it down. But let's just make sure we know how to find the next terms in my sequence. So here, example 1, identifying sequence. I have 12, 8, 4, and 0. So what is my common difference? Hopefully all of you are seeing that there is a subtraction of 4 that is happening to each of these numbers. So that means my common difference, my D, is negative 4. So if I asked you, well, what are the next 3 terms then? You should be able to then take 0 and subtract 4 to get negative 4. You should be able to subtract from negative 4 to get negative 8. And then you would be able to subtract from -8 to get -12. So again, just taking the previous number before it and then applying that difference. Okay. This next example, 1, 4, 9, and 16. Okay. We want to have a kind of a conversation about this one. Okay. And the thought is there an arithmetic sequence? Can I use the prior number in front of it to create the next term? So hopefully all of you guys are able to see with this one that I'm dealing with the square of that number. So the first number here, squared. The second number here, squared. The third number, and so on and so forth. So if I'm asking for the 12th number, I would just take 12 and square it. Okay? But because of that, this sequence is not arithmetic because it does not use my add or subtract to solve. Hopefully you can see the difference with that. Our next thought with this is not only just to find the next term, but to find the larger number. So this is when we're saying, all right, well, if this is the pattern, what is the 122nd term? So to find that term, we're going to need to create that formula. So we're going to walk through step by step so you can see why and how the formula is created the way it is. Okay, so we're going to start with our 4 terms. So we have 3, 5, 7, and 9. And we're going to label their particular position in relation to each other. Okay, so the number 3 is my very first term, so he is A1. This 5 here is my second term, so he's A2. This 7th is here. He is my A3. Sorry, clicking buttons here. And this number 9 here is then my 4th term, so he is my A4. Right? We can then take a look at it in terms of each other. So this first term is obviously himself. But the second term, isn't he A1 and then plus something? And in that something, we should see what that common difference is. And this one here, well, isn't he the one before it? Isn't he A2 plus that common difference? But we want to pull it all the way back. What is his relationship to the 3? Right, so that's what we're going to be taking a look at now. Okay, so the first thing we have to realize is that the sequence starts at A1, which is the number 3. And the common difference between these numbers is simply a +2. Okay, so we're going to now take a look at an approach to this. So our first term, as we talked about, is the number 3, which is my A1 label. My second term, as we discussed, is that A1 label plus my common difference of 2. So my second term is simply saying my first term plus D. Again, my third term, I could say, okay, well, it's the second term and then another +2. Or I can look at it as a comparison to this very first term. So how did I get from 3 to 7? Well, I took the 3, and then I have 2 sections of plus 2, don't I? So I have a plus 2 here and a plus 2 here. And we know with repeated addition, it's actually multiplication. So to get this third term, I take the first term and I add it to 2 times my d. Sorry, I spelled term wrong there. So it would be 3 times 2 times 2. How do I get this fourth term? Again, I want it in relation to this first term way over here. So it's the first term, and then I have 1, 2, 3 sections of plus 2, therefore giving me the 3d. So notice the number that's always in front of my d is 1 less than the position of the term itself. So if I'm looking for the fifth term, I would be 4 times d. If I was looking for the eighth term, it'd be 7 times d. Therefore, we can use our philosophy and our generic formula for saying that the nth term is take the first term, add then the number in front of the term I'm looking at, and then multiply it by d. This then creates the formula that we're going to be utilizing throughout this skill. My first term plus the number in front of the term I'm looking for times the common difference. So we're going to be utilizing this skill now, so we're going to write this formula nice and big, emphasizing that we know what we're talking about with this. Okay? So my a sub n is the term I'm looking for. A sub 1 is the first term given to me. N minus 1 is the term I'm looking for minus 1, 1 less than the term I'm looking for. And d still stands for my common difference. All right, so we're going to take a look at this in action. So example 2, we're going to take a look at now finding this nth term. Okay, so I am going to be looking for the 22nd term. Okay, and I'm given the numbers 5, 2, -1, -4. So if this is my pattern and 5 is my starting point, what is the 22nd term on this? So my first step is I need to find the common difference. How do I get from 5 to 2? Hopefully you realize I subtracted 3. How do I get from 2 to -1? I subtracted 3. So that common difference is -3. Now knowing that common difference, we're going to fill in the formula. All right, so my first step is the term I'm looking for. So I'm going to put my lowercase a, but he's written big, and I'm going to write 22 because I'm looking for the 22nd term. I'm going to put my equal sign. I'm then going to write down the first term given to me, and so in this case it's the number 5. I'm going to put my plus sign. I'm going to put my parenthesis, and I need to find 1 less than the term I'm looking for. So here I would have the number 21 because I'm looking for the 22nd term. So 1 before it is 21. And then that's getting multiplied by d. So I'm going to actually wrap this in parentheses because I don't want you to think that I'm subtracting 3 from it. I'm multiplying a -3 to it. So then when I do my please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, my order of operations, I get 5 plus, and this would come out as to -63. And then I would finish out my math problem. So my a of 22, my 22nd term in this, is going to be the answer of -58. So without sitting here and going, okay, well, this is the fourth one, minus 3 is negative 7, minus 3 is negative 10, minus 3 is negative 13, minus 3, I don't need to do that when I can just plug right into the formula. Okay? Sometimes with this formula, they give me my data right away. And all I have to do is plug it into the formula. So I'm looking for the 15th term. They tell me that my a sub 1, my very first term, is the number 7. So I bring my plus sign. Inside my first set of parentheses has to be one less than that number, so I should have the number 14 floating inside of it. Then they tell me my d is 3, so I'm going to put him in parentheses also. So then mathematically I do 7 plus, then 14 times 3, so it's going to give me 42. So when I mathematically solve it out, my a sub 15, so my 15th term in this sequence with this criteria is going to equal 49. Right? So hopefully through this you learned something. There's 2 additional problems that you can then work on your own to verify that you actually know what's going on. All right, and hopefully this video helped you out. Remember, you can always rewind, pause, and do whatever you need to do to re-listen to something again.